Amen. 36 minutes?
Wow, new record.
A new record. Hey, I used to do Torah portions when I first started in 20 minutes. I don't know how I did it. Actually, I was bad at it, and the guy kept looking at his watch and pointing at me. But that was 20 minutes is all I had. All right. So hopefully that was good for everyone, a good kind of little, at least we got something in there for today. We have time for a few questions to call on the Afterburn here. It's 4:45, so we have time for a little bit. So if you want to raise your hand, and Mike will come around. If you're on live stream, Robert has it, and we'll take your questions. We'll begin with Michael.
Rabbi, thank you. The brief moment I saw you during the break, I said, I'm so upset that this issue is taking my manna from me. I look forward every Sabbath to get my manna, and you gave me 36 minutes, and I appreciate it.
Okay, amen. Yeah, he saw me in the hallway as I was going out to the restroom real quick just to get ready for the teaching. He said, I don't want people to take my manna away, my food, that comes from, I appreciate it, just in case I couldn't understand what you were saying, but it's the manna, the food from heaven. So I appreciate that.
All right. My question is, I was trying to witness to my family because of an issue that happened in Sukkot, and I came back and I needed to talk to him, and I needed to try to link law, Torah, and Yeshua, and my mind slipped me. So what were those three verses to connect those?
Right.
Or with the teaching, I can find them.
All right, so you got John. All right, so you got in John, which says, I am the way, the truth, and so it's John 14:6. Okay, John 14:6, Psalm 119, verse 142 and 160, and John 1:14. Okay, that's your sort of loop right there. Okay, so John 14 says, I am the truth. Psalm 119 says the Torah is truth, or the entirety of your word is truth, in those two verses. There's more in Psalm 119 that says similar stuff. And then there's also, then back to John 1, where that word or that truth puts on flesh. Okay? That's my 3/4 verse loop that sort of shows Yeshua is the Torah. Okay?
I just want to say something to the parents, the young parents, that do teach your children when they're young to fear Yahweh, because I didn't do that. And I regret it now that I did not, because I'm reaping what I sowed, and just how important it is to teach them when they're young to fear Yahweh.
Amen. Amen. But also, don't be afraid when you're making these changes. Look, let me rephrase this. Your older teenagers will be a problem because they're already more established in thinking for themselves and establishing their sovereignty. So some of them may be harder when you raise them in this Christmas, Easter, and all that other stuff. But your little ones, they will have a much easier time of it. They will not even skip a beat. As a matter of fact, they're the ones that are going to embrace Sukkot and Pesach and all of the holy days of Yahweh much quicker even than you did. And so don't, now if you got older children, they'll struggle. Not all of them, but a lot of them. You've got several of them. You got Ali here, but you got others that are not. It's harder for the older ones, especially when you've raised them in the way they should go, and they're not easily going to let it go. And so if you raise them in that Christian sort of system, of course it's going to be hard for them to let it go. But the younger ones, the ones that you normally think of running around to the Christmas tree, the little ones going and scampering in, they will let that go much, much easier than you think. Okay, they will let it go much, much easier than you think. And believe me, if you ask them, would you rather have the Christmas tree and a bunch of presents or a week at Sukkot in the YMTI program? Not a problem. Okay, I know they would much rather spend a week at Sukkot being with their friends and having a program for the youth than having one day with a bunch of presents under a tree. And so ask them, do you want Yahweh's holy days or do you want what man's put in there? Okay, who's next? Okay, Daweed.
And Dawn's after me, just so she knows I didn't forget her. I just wanted to mention, since we're talking about parents teaching their children, one thing that my dad did not do, even though his mother was very much for Christmas and everything else, he did not teach us anything about Santa Claus. He tried to keep it to at least, quote unquote, he's the reason for the season, whatever. But that was a seed that was planted that helped me make that transition. And even later, we, in my early teen years, for sure, it was instilled in us. Halloween is nothing that you need to be a part of at all. It's definitely straight up evil, and it's not to be remotely compared to Purim, which says, and for the Jews there was light and life and happiness and everything else. That is nothing of what Halloween is about. Halloween's all about fear, trying to instill fear and horror and trepidation and everything else. That's what it's about.
Well, and it's a threat. If you don't give me a treat, I'm going to give you a trick.
Exactly. There's that too. And
Yeah.
so for my mom and my dad, both of them taught me early on that there's some things that are being taught to you that are not what you need to be a part of. And later on, when I was 17 and we entered the Messianic movement, it was easy to say, you know what? I got all these other feasts. Why do I need to keep track of this stuff?
Amen. All right, Dawn?
A lot of that stuff is junk anyway. It just happens to be the fad of what's going around and what everybody else has at the time.
Closer to your mouth.
It's all going to burn anyway. When we found out, we just chucked the whole Christmas tree down in the basement stairs, and the kids really didn't care about it. They were really mad, just coming from a perspective. They were mad they were tricked. And they felt really bad for their friends that they didn't know. We always told them the truth. We didn't do the whole Santa Claus thing. We were like, oh, but don't tell them because, we didn't want to have all the parents come in against us. But our kids are that example. They would much rather be with their teen friends, having that extra money that they've put away from their tithe, that they can spend at the feast and buy jewelry and Bibles, and they love it. There's no regret.
Yeah. Look, we don't need to turn it into Christmaka, you know? I mean, that's really what you end up with, basically. And I grew up with that, by the way, because my parents were, from a Jewish community that had started doing that whole present thing. So, I mean, I had no problem receiving a gift every night or whatever it was, but it wasn't something that I missed not having, or, it just... Now, of course, nobody's going to, as you're a kid, you're not going to turn down the presents, but if it all of a sudden stopped, that wasn't going to bother me. I just think that we forget how much we project through our children. And when I talk to parents, I said, are you being honest? Is it really about them or is it about you? Because some of you really love the trappings of that season, and you liked changing over your house, and you like the decorations, and you like the lights, and you like the this and the that, whatever. It's just part of your cultural raising, and upbringing. And so, but you want to project and say, no, it's about the children. Well, no, let's be honest. It's not about the children. Okay? And as a matter of fact, I've asked them, I said, have you asked the children? Or are you just assuming? Because those children may surprise you. Children in their innocence, like when Yeshua says, don't, hold back the children, they embrace him sometimes a lot easier than you do. And they understand fearing authority, the little ones. They don't want to disappoint mom or dad if mom and dad are showing a proper authority with them. And then when they find out about the creator of the universe, they want to be careful not to disappoint him either. And so I think that's a big part of this. Lisa?
In the case where you've got the children who've been raised in Christianity and they're coming out of the feast and that sort of thing, and there's a disillusionment. There's not only a disillusionment with the fact that there's a lack of trust with the parents, but they watch the news, they see what's happening in the world and all the rest of it. I mean, how would you counsel them to have hope and walk forward?
I mean, I would do almost exactly what you just said in terms of I would just keep counseling them and telling them you need to have hope. Look, let's first understand, especially when you have older children, they're not stupid. They're seeing what's going on. They're watching the news. They're watching the world. And so the thing that I would make sure to do is validate what they're seeing. In other words, tell them it is valid to see what you're seeing and have a problem with trusting, with being disillusioned, with feeling like the world has got lies all over the place. Government lies to us. Health, all of the big fields that we can run into, all the big areas, lie to us. Whether it's politics, health, finance, we're being lied to by all of the biggest things that we interact with. Religion too, so everything. Okay, so when you get to be old enough as a teenager to realize how much you've been lied to, it's then very hard to trust anything. And so that's when we have to start from scratch, building the foundation back up and encouraging them. I said, look, you have basically, first of all, I don't blame you for feeling the way you do, because what you're seeing, you're actually seeing. That's real. However, not finding a foundation puts you at risk, like the Bible talks about, of just getting blown right over and just having your life be a tossed to and fro disaster. You need to find that solid ground to build on, or you will never be able to find a way through the storm and weather the storm. And we believe as your parents, it's here. Okay? So that's what you say, and as your parents, we've been doing this longer than you. We've been blown about and to and fro. We've gotten knocked over a few times. And yes, we see the problem just like you do. But through all of that, we found this is the rock, the foundation. And just keep encouraging that. But still, in other words, instead of being confrontational, walk over to their side of the table, so to speak, and say, oh yeah, I see it too. And oh yeah, I wasn't happy about it either. And oh yeah, I had a lot of trust issues and disillusionment. And so yeah, no, I'm with you. But I also came to recognize, being more than twice your age, or whatever you can say to your children, that there's a need. To survive in this world, you have to have something you can hold on to, something that's real. And in our searching, we believe we found that here. Even though there's been a counterfeit put on top of it, the truth is still there. Would that help? Okay? But remember, that's only going to be effective to whatever degree until they get that personal revelation. He has to still open their eyes and ears himself. All right? There's nothing you can do to circumvent that. That's like a law of Torah. Yahweh, it says, Yeshua said, the Father reveals the Son, and the Son reveals the Father. That's Torah, because it came out of Yeshua's mouth. We cannot go around that. So just keep praying that he'll do that. In the meantime, encourage your children. Listen, you need to find something, because having nothing is awful. And you probably had that for a couple of years where you're in that place. I know we have. Those places where you just don't know what to know. I mean, after all, once you found out you've been lied to, it's a little hard to trust. And we've all been lied to when it comes to the understanding of our Creator and our relationship with him. So that's a tough place to be. Okay, Leyland.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, when we were little, it was much easier to know the truth than it was, to be honest, like Christmas and Easter kind of scared me when I was little. So when we came to the truth, it was a lot easier, and it was really nice to know, like, what it was about.
Okay, awesome. And also, when you come to explain the truth, when you tell people when your children know where Christmas really came from, I mean, they're probably wondering, well, why do we dress up funny for Halloween and knock on people's doors and they hand us candy? I mean, that's kind of weird. And actually, in today's society, why would we trust it to eat it? You know? I mean, that's kind of scary in itself. Because at some point, it's not just fun and dressing up. At some point, you actually ask the question, what is it we're doing anyway? And what's the point of all this? And when you can explain the truth to them, they actually can appreciate it and go, oh. And then they go, well, why do I want to participate in that? But see, what happens is the churches are not having Halloween. They're having a fall festival on October 31st with a fire and costumes. You know, we rented a building one Shabbat in Nashville. Well, it wasn't Nashville. It was like nearby, whatever it was, Brentwood or Franklin or someplace. And we were renting this church for Sabbath services, and we were in between buildings, and we only had it for a couple of weeks. And wouldn't you know, they were having their fall festival, because that Saturday was Halloween. And so we were up. Remember, I didn't get to Nashville till the afternoon, because we had already done morning services in Knoxville. So this is later in the afternoon, sundown is coming, and they're going right into their big Halloween thing, and they're all in costumes, dancing around a fire like demons themselves. And this is happening at the church, and the church is sponsoring it. Well, we're up in the upper room, actually, because it was upstairs in this small, we're in an upper room going, okay, so the Torah says, pay no attention to the demon-looking people dancing around a fire outside. Because they literally had made a fire, and they were all dancing around it, having a great time. So, the spin that the churches are doing, just calling it a fall festival doesn't. We have a fall festival. It's called Sukkot. Amen. Why do we need to improve on what he does? I mean, we just came back from it. It was perfect. It was awesome. It doesn't need any improvement by us. All right, where's the mic? Michael. Okay, then we got to start wrapping this up and get the mic to Robert. It's already 5 o'clock.
I just want to let the people be aware that just this week alone at a local high school here in Chattanooga, that there was an incident of a laced Oreo cookies and kids got sick. So that just goes to show you don't need to participate in that stuff.
No, you don't. Okay? The only snacks that you should be getting are from the YMTY Kids program. And you don't have to buy them. We provide them free when your children are in class. I just hold them through the 4-hour service. Okay, where's the mic? Okay, bring it to Dawn. But Robert, do you have a few back there? Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to you in a minute. But Dawn, let's bring the mic down here to Dawn, and then we'll try to start wrapping this up.
2 quick questions. What do you feel about decorating your home? Because I like to decorate my home for seasons.
Yep.
That's one question. The other is, how do you combat the extreme Messianic response when you learn you've been lied to and you kind of pendulum to the extreme? We had friends that they told their little kids the extreme about Moloch and burning babies, and she had this black little faced girl that would just go, Santa burns babies, and it was just this really extreme.
No, I don't think you need to go that far with your children. It's simply to say this is not Yahweh's plan. This is something that was brought in, and it's a delusion and lie and stuff. You don't have to get to that place where you scare the life out of your child. Okay. The other part of that is. What was the first question? Oh, the seasons. Okay. If you remember when we talked about Sabbath, as far as what you can and can't do on the Sabbath, we talked about, things like passive commerce and active commerce and everything. One of the things we talked about was the reasonable person test. You can decorate your home any way you want seasonally. Of course, putting things for the summer and everything is one thing. It's not when we get the problem. We get to winter. And when you want to put winter decorations up in your house. The question you want to ask is, would the average normal person walk in your house think that it's Christmas stuff? As long as the answer is no, then it's probably fine. There's no reason you can't. The problem is they have now they've usurped your ability to just decorate with seasonal winter stuff. Okay? So what I'm saying is, well, they're already starting to put stuff up because we're almost to Halloween is when it really starts already. But, bottom line is, if you like to put lights, my wife loves lights. But we've had to balance and figure out how can we put lights that don't look like it's Christmas stuff, because she likes lights just in general. Not multicolored ones, but just pretty lights just to put maybe somewhere. She likes them indoors too and in the house or whatever, but just lights. But I said, well, we have to just make sure it doesn't look anywhere where the average regular person might look at it and go, oh, that's Christmas stuff. Like a snowman is not Christmas, but it's been usurped by Christmas. It's almost impossible to put a snowman decoration up anywhere and not have somebody assume it's Christmas. Okay? Because it's connected to Frosty and the whole thing. So we are just not able to do certain things because we want to have the avoidance of the appearance of being participating. And so seasonal stuff, fine, but let's not be putting up cornucopias and things that are linked to these different things. But rather, let's try to figure out ways to say, okay, if I did this, and by the way, get counsel. If you're married, ask your husband. You want to have those that can get a second opinion. Ask a friend to look at it and say, hey, what do you see when you see this? Does it feel like it's Christmassy, or does it feel like it's fall or winter? Because I don't mind you decorating. I just don't want you to get linked to and confuse people where they're going to think you're linking to it. And the only way to do that is get somebody other than you, because sometimes you're so close to something, you don't see it, but they will. So we want to go get that average person on the street, so to speak, a friend of yours that sort of, say, hey, when you look at this, what's the impression you get? All right? And don't be offended if they tell you that it looks like Christmas or something. Just try to avoid that, okay? And that's one of those places where I say you want to be a maximalist versus a minimalist. Be more conservative than you would normally want to be, to go out of your way to make sure it doesn't give the wrong impression. Does that mean that you're now being restricted from things that you should be able to do? Yes. And that's not my fault. It's the world has taken things that should not be a problem and made them a problem. I mean, that's just the way it is. Okay? I mean, they have taken symbology and usurped it from being used as whatever it could be known and attached it to things that you don't want to be attached to. They've tainted it. What can you do? That's the reality. All right, Robert.
All right, the first is I'm going to go last first. The first is a comment by Yanni. Do not as they do. If you are in a situation where they try to press you to sin, crawl inside yourself and pray. Abba will help you. Just trust and pray. Abba will keep you.
Oh, it's so good to hear from Yanni. We love you. We miss you. And well said, Yanni. Very good.
And then from Pete Lamb. Could you speak on the relationship between the voice in Deuteronomy 8:20 and the voice in John 10:16 and 27?
John what? 10?
John 10:16 and 10:27.
Okay, I think I covered this in part 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 of Do You Know the Father and the Son? John is talking about, Yeshua is talking about in John 10, my sheep know my voice. Okay, so we can see that would be the covenanted people, the ones who are covenanted to obey that voice, so they can recognize that voice. So I see there's a linkage there. That's a good connection. I'm pretty sure I probably would have connected the John part to something like the Deuteronomy 8. I don't know what other verses I would have used, but the idea of obeying the voice and my sheep know my voice, it's a relational thing. What's the relationship we have? It's called covenanted. Okay? That was a very good connection. Go ahead. That was it? Okay. Let's go ahead and get the children out of the Katan classes. Shabbat.